In this video we analyze a brilliant chess game move by move. I move. Watch closely. One small mistake can decide everything. Let's begin. Hammer opens with knight to f3, calmly developing and eyeing central squares, a flexible start that keeps options wide and tension quietly building. So answers with pawn to d5, immediately claiming central space and signaling a solid classical approach, ready to contest Hammer's ambitions head-on. Hammer pushes pawn to d4, reinforcing central control and preparing a strong pawn duo, setting the stage for a positional battle. So develops knight to f6, attacking the center and preparing rapid piece activity, maintaining balance while watching Hammer's expanding pawn structure. Hammer advances pawn to c4, striking at the center and building a powerful pawn presence, clearly aiming for long-term spatial advantage. So responds with pawn to e6, solidifying the d5 pawn and opening lines for the dark-squared bishop, a resilient offensive backbone. Hammer plays g3, preparing to fianchetto the bishop, aiming for long diagonal pressure and a harmonious kingside setup. So checks with bishop to b4, immediately creating tension and forcing a reaction, a sharp interruption in Hammer's smooth development. Hammer calmly blocks with bishop to d2, neutralizing the check while maintaining structure, showing composure under early pressure. So retreats bishop to e7, preserving the piece and preparing to castle, keeping the position solid and flexible. Hammer fianchettos with bishop to g2, completing a key setup and targeting the long diagonal, quietly increasing pressure. So develops knight to d7, reinforcing central control and preparing potential redeployment, keeping coordination tight and ready. Hammer places queen on c2, supporting the center and aligning with the bishop, hinting at future tactical possibilities. So castles kingside, ensuring king safety and connecting rooks, a crucial step before deeper complications arise. Hammer castles kingside as well, securing the king and completing development harmony, ready for the middle game fight. So advances pawn to chicks, strengthening the d5 point and preparing a stable pawn chain, a very classical structure. Hammer plays b3, preparing to develop the bishop and reinforce the center from behind, a subtle yet flexible move. So mirrors with b6, preparing a fianchetto or flexible bishop development, keeping symmetry but with hidden tension. Hammer develops knight to c3, adding pressure to the center and increasing piece activity, everything coordinated smoothly. So places bishop on a6, targeting the e2 square and creating immediate tactical tension against Hammer's setup. Hammer captures on d5 with pawn, opening the center and initiating exchanges, testing So's pawn structure. So recaptures with pawn from chicks, maintaining central presence and keeping structure intact, ready for dynamic play. Hammer moves queen to b2, aligning on the long diagonal and eyeing potential weaknesses, a strategic repositioning. So jumps knight to f4, planting it aggressively in the center, challenging Hammer's coordination and creating tension. Hammer captures the knight on e4, removing the central outpost and simplifying slightly while maintaining control. So recaptures with pawn to e4, gaining space and opening lines, the center becomes fluid and dangerous. Hammer jumps knight to f5, an aggressive central post, increasing pressure and inviting complications. So captures that knight with his knight, eliminating the intruder and keeping control of critical squares. Hammer recaptures with pawn to f5, pushing forward and gaining space, creating a dangerous advance pawn. So strikes with bishop takes e2, removing a key defender and opening tactical possibilities. Tension sharply rises. Hammer responds bishop takes e4, grabbing material and activating a piece, but the position is heating rapidly. So counters with bishop takes f1, a precise capture that disrupts Hammer's king safety and structure significantly. Hammer captures on e8 with bishop, taking the rook in a bold raid. Material swings begin to appear. So calmly recaptures with queen to a8, restoring material balance while centralizing a powerful piece. Hammer plays rook takes f1, recovering material and stabilizing the back rank, trying to regain control. So brings rook to date, activating it on the open file. Pressure builds toward the center. Hammer develops bishop to e3, reinforcing central control and preparing coordination, trying to consolidate. So pushes pawn to h5, an aggressive kingside thrust, signaling attacking intentions and space gain. Hammer repositions queen to c2, keeping control and watching multiple directions, staying flexible under pressure. So advances pawn to h4, continuing the pawn storm and aiming to destabilize Hammer's kingside defenses. Hammer slides rook to dun, reinforcing the central file and preparing to contest open lines, trying to stabilize under growing kingside pressure from So. So pushes pawn to h3, advancing deep into enemy territory, creating a dangerous spear that threatens to rip open Hammer's king shelter. Hammer captures on date with rook, delivering check and removing a key defender, attempting to relieve pressure through tactical exchange. So calmly recaptures with bishop to date, neutralizing the threat while keeping pieces coordinated and pressure alive on multiple fronts. Hammer advances pawn to f4, reinforcing the center and preparing counterplay, trying to blunt So's attacking momentum. So repositions bishop to e7, consolidating and preparing future coordination, maintaining a flexible yet dangerous setup. Hammer moves queen to e2, connecting pieces and guarding key squares, attempting to regroup amid rising tension. So centralizes queen to e4, an aggressive post that eyes both kingside and center, increasing tactical threats. Hammer steps king to f1, cautiously improving safety and avoiding checks, though still under looming pressure. So strikes with queen to hone check, a sharp intrusion into the back rank, forcing immediate defensive reactions. Hammer moves king to f2, escaping the check but drifting further into a dangerous zone where attacks may intensify. So captures on h2 with queen, delivering another check and tearing apart pawn cover. The king is now exposed. Hammer runs king to a1, trying to centralize defensively, but the position becomes increasingly chaotic and risky. So captures on e2 with queen check, eliminating a defender and keeping the initiative firmly in hand. Hammer recaptures with king on e2, forced to step into the open, a very risky but necessary decision. So pushes pawn to h2, advancing relentlessly. This pawn becomes a terrifying promotion threat deep in enemy lines. Hammer brings king to f3, attempting to escape and regroup, but the exposed monarch remains a clear target. So promotes pawn to hone into a new queen with check. The h-pawn transforms explosively, turning a passer into a lethal attacking weapon instantly. Hammer moves king to g4, fleeing checks but drifting further into danger. The board now feels like a battlefield. So plays g6, calmly reinforcing structure and preparing to coordinate pieces around the exposed white king. Hammer develops bishop to d2, trying to bring defenders back into play and block critical lines. So checks with queen to done, keeping constant pressure and forcing Hammer's king into awkward positions. Hammer moves king to h3, dodging the check, but stepping deeper into enemy territory, extremely risky. So captures on d2 with queen, removing a defender and simplifying into a winning attack structure. Hammer moves king to g4, continuing the desperate escape, but the net around him tightens. So captures pawn on a2 with queen, picking material while maintaining attacking chances, showing cold precision. Hammer returns king to h3, oscillating under pressure, unable to find true safety. So captures on b3 with queen, further material gain, and clearing paths for additional threats. Hammer goes back to g4, repeating king maneuvers, searching for any breathing room. So advances pawn to f5, calmly starting a distant passed pawn march, splitting the battlefield and forcing Hammer to worry on two fronts simultaneously. Hammer retreats king to h3 again, stuck in a loop of survival under relentless pressure. So pushes pawn to f4, continuing the march, preparing unstoppable promotion threats. Hammer moves king to g4, still running but with diminishing options as threats multiply. So advances pawn to f3, pushing closer to promotion. Tension builds rapidly. Hammer returns king to h3, trapped in a shrinking safe zone, danger everywhere. So pushes pawn to a2, one step from promotion, the position now on the brink of collapse. Hammer goes king to g4, desperately trying to stay alive amid overwhelming threats. So promotes pawn on a1 into a new queen. The second promotion lands like thunder, overwhelming material and pushing the attack into a crushing phase. Hammer retreats king to h3, now facing multiple queens. The situation becomes nearly hopeless. So places queen on d3, coordinating pieces and tightening the mating net with clinical precision. Hammer moves king to g4 again, desperately searching for escape squares, but every step feels like walking deeper into a tightening cage of threat. So pushes pawn to b5, calmly expanding on the queenside, adding another dangerous passer while maintaining full attacking control. Hammer returns king to h3, stuck in a repetitive struggle for survival, clearly running out of safe options. So advances pawn to b4, reinforcing the rolling pawn wave, preparing yet another promotion while Hammer's position collapses under unstoppable pressure. Hammer thrusts pawn to 5, a last attempt to create counterplay and distract So's attack, hoping for complications. So captures on f5 with queen check, crushing the attempt instantly and continuing the relentless assault with precision. Hammer pushes pawn to g4, trying to block lines and gain space, but the king remains dangerously exposed. So repositions queen to fr, centralizing power and keeping multiple threats alive across the board. Hammer advances pawn to g5, attempting to disrupt coordination, but it feels like a desperate final push. So pushes pawn to b3, continuing the unstoppable march, another promotion threat looming immediately. Hammer brings king to g3, trying one last defensive regroup, but the net is already closing in tightly. So advances pawn to b2, one step from promotion. The tension becomes unbearable for Hammer. Hammer moves king to h3, clinging to survival as the position reaches critical collapse. So promotes pawn to bone into a third queen, a surreal moment as 3 queens dominate the board, completely suffocating Hammer's remaining resistance. Hammer moves king to g3, but there is nowhere left to hide. Every square is under fire. So uses the queen from a1 to capture on f5 with check. Precisely the newly promoted queen strikes, removing resistance and tightening the mating net further. Hammer goes king to h3, forced and helpless. The final moments are approaching rapidly. So shifts a queen to 5 with check, coordinating multiple queens perfectly. Every escape square is covered in a suffocating tactical web. Hammer moves king to g3, the last attempts to escape, but all routes are sealed. So captures on g5 with queen check, eliminating defenders and preparing the final blow with brutal efficiency. Hammer moves king to h3, completely trapped, with no escape squares remaining. So delivers queen to hone checkmate, a final coordinated strike with overwhelming force. Hammer is completely checkmated and has no legal moves, forced to resign. The video ends here. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. Please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thank you again, everyone. See you in the next video.